Good morning, everyone. This morning, a special on the record. The Attorney General debate. In perhaps the closest race of the Massachusetts September 9th primary, two Democrats, Maura Healey and Warren Tolman, are vying to be the state's top attorney. A very good morning to you. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Ruth. Thank you for joining us on OTR this morning. This is a very competitive battle to succeed Martha Coakley on Beacon Hill. Republican John Miller is running unopposed, but on the Democratic side, a big push until the September polling. So let me introduce the candidates who are with us this morning. Maura Healey is a Charlestown resident and a first-time candidate. For the past 7 years, she's been an assistant AG under Coakley. She has also served as prosecutor in Middlesex County. And Watertown resident Warren Tolman is a practicing attorney, no stranger to the Massachusetts political world, a former member of the Mass House and Senate. He also made past runs for governor and lieutenant governor. Our rules this morning are very simple. We will not be running a formal clock. We would love for the candidates to go ahead and express yourselves fully and completely, but we are interested in balance. We're interested in equal time between the two of you, so if there's any filibustering, we'll jump in and stop it immediately, so be mindful of that. So let's begin. A drawing has been determined. Maura Healey will get the first question from Janet Wu. Go ahead.
Thanks for being here this morning. You have similar views on many of the key issues. What really differentiates the two of you are your experiences. What's more important being an attorney general? Is it being an experienced litigator or a political leader? Maura, you get first crack at this.
Well, I think that the job of the attorney general is really to fight for people, and that's what I've been doing in my last 7 years in that office. Suing the federal government on behalf of couples here to establish equal marriage rights, taking on big banks, stopping foreclosures, keeping homeowners in their homes, working with companies to achieve nationwide settlements for people with disabilities. This is the work of the Attorney General's office. This is the work that I've been doing. It is important as Attorney General that you be a skilled lawyer managing a 500-person public law firm. Of course it is, because you've got to make judgments. You need to make calls about which cases to bring, how to frame them, how to settle, when, who to subpoena. That's all very important. But it also requires somebody who's been willing to fight and take on big challenges and lead in the way that I have in the Attorney General's office, whether that was suing a popular elected President Obama when it came to DOMA, or whether it was standing up to some of the big banks who wreaked havoc on our economy. That's the work of the Attorney General's office. That's what it means to be Attorney General.
Warren, is she right? Being a skilled litigator is the #1 priority in being Attorney General?
Well, I absolutely believe that that's part of it, but it's part of it. I've been a lawyer for 25 years. The first 13 years I was a litigator. But I also have other experiences. You know, as a product of the Watertown Public Schools, my mom and dad started our family a federal housing project in Watertown. I'm the 7th of 8 kids, first in my family to go to college. I think those experiences helped me. I think the fact that I spent 8 years on Beacon Hill, 4 in the House, 4 in the Senate, took on some of the toughest public policy issues during that tenure. Took on the tobacco industry long before it was popular and beat them. The American Cancer Society sent me around the country. They like my work so much. Unafraid to tiptoe around and lead on public policy agendas. I've been a teacher. I taught at Boston College Law School and Northeastern Law School. I'm very proud of my experience working with small companies, working with large companies in the private sector. I think it is the breadth of those experiences, the diverse experience, that really lend one to being a leader. And that's the type of leader that I want to be as Attorney General. Someone who takes a big approach to resolving seemingly intractable problems in Massachusetts.
Warren, this is your third run for state office. You ran for lieutenant governor in '98, and then you ran for governor in 2002. Tell voters why this is not just another unsuccessful shopping expedition.
Yeah, you know, I ran 12 years ago, and I wasn't planning on getting back, Ed. But the Marathon Bombers came to my neighborhood, and when I saw those brave public servants literally in my basement trying to protect me and my family, the SWAT team came through and the like, it started me thinking about what my role is and how I could perhaps make a difference again. And when Martha Coakley decided to run for governor 6 or so months later, I got calls from people like Francis X. Bellotti, a former Attorney General, one of the great leaders, I think, as Attorney General nationally, Scott Harshbarger. Both of them said to me, you ought to do this. Your skills are perfectly suited to be a great leader, to be a great Attorney General. I'm proud that they, as well as every former Democratic Attorney General, have endorsed me. And I think that it is the breadth of one's experience. You know, over the last 12 years, Ed, I watched my kids. I have 3 kids. My kids were young then, and I didn't want to run for office because it didn't work. My first and primary responsibility family is being a dad. They only have one dad. So my kids are older now. My youngest is 16, my oldest is 24. They're in a different place, and this is a great opportunity to use my skills to help the Commonwealth.
Maura, if you would talk to the voters. I know you don't have the same resume that Warren has, but talk to the voters along similar lines, please.
Well, I think what's clear, and what's clear to voters, is that as Attorney General, you're the people's lawyer. You're not just another Beacon Hill politician. And my experience and how I come to this, look at, this is the only job I've ever run for. This is the job I want. This is the job that I've been doing on the front lines the last 7 years, and ultimately had responsibility for about half of that office, fighting for people, fighting for women's access to health care, standing up to bullying in schools and protecting kids, fighting corporate practices that were unfair or deceptive, took advantage of people. That's the work of the Attorney General. In terms of my experience, I worked in private practice, I counseled business clients, I was a prosecutor, I was a civil rights attorney, and for the last 7 years I've been a division chief and a bureau chief in the Attorney General's office. That's the work of the Attorney General. Again, you're the people's lawyer. You're not the people's lobbyist. You're not there for Beacon Hill. You're not another legislator or super legislator. You were there to make cases, make investigations, and ensure that people's rights are protected here in the state. That's what I've been doing.
Let's switch the conversation over to Market Basket. It really has been the dominant issue this summer. Maura, you've said there's no role for the top legal law enforcement officer in this fight at this particular time. But tens of thousands of jobs, as well as hundreds of thousands of shoppers, have been affected by all of this. Isn't this where legal leadership is required?
Yeah, and that's not actually what I said, Janet. My position was this. Look, I'm a Market Basket customer myself. I've heard so many stories from folks who've been laid off, who are out of work as a result of this. I've heard stories from the suppliers who can't now sell their crops. And this has been devastating for families, for our communities.
So what should the Attorney General do?
Here's what the Attorney General should do, and what she is doing. And I support this, and I support what the governor is doing in terms of reaching out and trying to broker a deal and a solution. Attorney General's job is also to not just to advocate and support the governor that way, but to make sure that people's fair labor rights are protected. That's why there's been a hotline set up in the Attorney General's office. That's certainly something I would do, to make sure that workers' rights are protected. This is what I used to do in the office, among other things. Making sure that people got paid for the work that they do. Making sure that their fair labor rights weren't violated. And so really important issues come up in this scenario that require the work of the Attorney General for sure. And I just hope, and I certainly would do everything in my power to bring this to a resolution so that people can get back to work.
Warren, should the top legal litigator in the state be involved in the negotiations more beyond what Maura just talked about?
Absolutely, Janet. I couldn't disagree more. Absolutely, you have a role to play to make sure the workers get their wages and all of that. And I've actually distributed leaflets to some of the workers as they walked around just to let them know, and by the way, in different languages, because many of these people are new immigrants to our Commonwealth, to let them know what their rights are. But it's got to be larger than that. This has been going on 7 weeks. We've got hundreds of thousands of customers. We've got over 10,000 Massachusetts residents who've lost their job, other states as well, and hundreds of vendors. It's a time for leadership. And if, as Attorney General, I believe that I could potentially forge a consensus, get the Arthur T. and Arthur S. to collaborate, talk to some members of the boards of directors, push them towards a resolution. If I could have done that in week 1, well, that's 6 weeks of pain and suffering that some of these workers living on the edge would not have endured. You don't need to, Janet, look for specific statutory authority. You can lead here. And we have an obligation. The governor finally weighed in. Good. I'm glad the governor weighed in. But it could have happened 6 weeks ago. And I would have done it quietly, Janet. You wouldn't have known about it. I wouldn't have told anyone. I would have done it quietly, tried to do it, tried to push them together. That's what leaders do.
And there's no disagreement here. Look, Warren and I both know this. That folks, leadership at all levels have been reaching out quietly and not so quietly. That's what you do. And certainly as Attorney General, I'll be the first to pick up the phone. That's what you do, and that's what I've done in my career.
So you would get involved in the negotiations quietly as well?
Oh, absolutely, Janet. Whatever it takes is what we got to do.
That's not what you said before, Maura.
That's not what you said, I said. That is not actually true. But here's the point. You got to lead on this issue, absolutely, but you also got to be there to use the law, and that's why I think it's really important what the Attorney General has done in terms of setting up, right now, real time, a way for employees and their families to come forward. You got to do both.
Take a few minutes to balance that, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
So that role that Maura talks about is important. but it's much, much larger than that. It's rolling up this. The governor got in 6 weeks. I think he got in 6 weeks too late, 5 weeks too late. I think that, you know, and Governor Patrick's a great leader. I've been a great supporter of his. But I believe that you really have to quietly go and do some tacit diplomacy and try to push. There's hundreds of thousands of people's lives at stake, shoppers that you know, that $25 or $30 extra a week in shopping is substantial for them. And that's when you step in and you try to get the groups to collaborate and work together.
Maura, just very quickly, yes or no, did Governor Patrick get in too late into this fight? Just a yes or no.
I think that Governor Patrick got in, and I think that you know, I think that you could have gotten in right away, sure, you know. But look, I mean, this has been an unfolding situation, and you know, we've seen how devastating this has become as each day and week goes by. So, you know, believe me, this is something I'd roll up my sleeves on, and Warren knows that. You call for meetings, you reach out, you do what you can do behind the scenes, and you're prepared to act publicly as well.
I want to talk about another complicated issue, Ferguson, Missouri. And I understand it's Ferguson, Missouri, not Ferguson, Massachusetts. However, the circumstances, this is happening in America. The United States Attorney General physically went to Ferguson, and he actually walked on the ground. Warren, let me start with you. If you were the Missouri Attorney General, what would you have done differently, perhaps?
Well, first thing is you don't wait for a crisis. You hopefully anticipate some issues that are out there by talking, by collaborating. The chief law enforcement officer of the Commonwealth ought to be working with these individuals, these folks from all over, in this case Missouri, but certainly in my case Massachusetts, working with them and collaborating them, foster a cohesive working relationship. That's number one. And you do that part of it in Massachusetts. You know, our police are the third lowest funded for police training in the country. We're 47, so we can do a lot better there. We also push for transparency. When stuff like this happens, we want to let the record speak for itself. In addition, we need to look to try to foster that sense that we're going to roll up our sleeves, and these incidents cannot continually happen over and over again. You know, we know what happened with DJ Henry, the brave young man from Avon, Mass, a few years ago. It's a habitual problem where young and black men are gunned down unarmed. But there's also more going on here, Ed, that we can't just look at this incident of someone getting shot allegedly with his hands up. You know, the fact that there's a 31-year life expectancy discrepancy between someone in Back Bay and someone in Roxbury for men. 31-year discrepancy. We need to address these issues not as part of piecemeal, someone got shot unarmed, but as a larger piece of how society is treating men and women of color.
Maura, go ahead, please.
Well, look, you know, Ed, I come to this as a civil rights lawyer. I spent a better part of my career bringing cases against entities or people who discriminated against people, sometimes based on their color. In housing, in jobs, in education, in lending. So, you know, I come to this very personally, and I've also had an experience as a prosecutor and as chief of the Civil Rights Division in the Attorney General's office, where one of the things that I did was train police and work with them on how to respond to hate crimes, for example, how to reduce racial profiling. I spent a lot of time sitting with others in law enforcement and in community groups together, coming together to talk about issues. Because the key is this, Ed. People need to trust in law enforcement, and we need to make sure that people's civil rights aren't violated. And I think, you know, if I were in Ferguson, here's what I would do. First thing I'd do is I'd open up a civil rights investigation, and I'd investigate the activities of the police and the response of the police to the incident. The second thing, and I certainly will do that here in Massachusetts, I want to work to institute police training statewide. Warren's right. Our police departments don't have the resources that they need to do the kinds of training that I know they want to do. So I think that's really important, and certainly as Chief Law Enforcement Officer, as Attorney General, I will support efforts at the trainings. I'll also continue to make my office available for community groups, because you need to build the trust, you need to build the respect. That is very, very important.
If you can make it quick.
Yeah, real quick.
Because we're going to hit a break.
The training is not only about driving while black and similar situations, but it's also about domestic violence. It's about dealing with people who have mental illness, autistic children. There's a whole range of training that needs to take place, and our police deserve it.
It's not simple training, right? Right, Maura?
Oh, no, I'm talking about training. Warren's right.
Right.
Training for responding to situations where
Right.
somebody has a mental illness, training on how to better identify and respond to domestic violence, having prosecuted DV cases. I support the new domestic violence legislation, which actually calls for some of that training. And that's something I'm sure going to look to enforce as Attorney General.
Let us take a break. We'll be right back with the Attorney General debate. Stay with us.